Have you ever wondered what could drive an entire nation to rise against its rulers? Imagine the late 18th century, a time of monarchs and nobles, of inequality and discontent. Now picture a country, France, on the brink of a monumental shift. This is the setting for one of the most influential periods in world history, the French Revolution, a time of upheaval and change that would echo through the centuries. The French Revolution, a pivotal moment in history, holds the answers. To understand the revolution, you must first grasp the state of France before it. Before the revolution, France was a monarchy ruled by King Louis XVI. This was a time when the power of the king was absolute, unchallenged, and unquestioned. He was considered the divine right ruler, meaning he was chosen by God to govern the kingdom. But as we all know, unchecked power can lead to unchecked corruption, and this was no different in the monarchy of France. The socio-political structure of France was divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy, the second estate was the nobility, and the third estate was everyone else, from prosperous merchants to impoverished peasants. Despite making up about 98% of the population, the third estate had very little power, and they bore the brunt of the nation's taxation, while the first and second estates enjoyed numerous privileges and exemptions. This was a time of gross inequality. The affluent lived lives of luxury while the poor could barely afford bread. The rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer, and the middle class was virtually non-existent. The economic conditions were also dire. France was in debt due to its involvement in the American Revolution, and its extravagant spending on luxuries at the royal court. The kingdom was on the brink of bankruptcy. Efforts to reform the tax system were met with stiff resistance from the upper estates, who were unwilling to give up their privileges. Furthermore, the Estates General, the legislative body of France, was flawed in its voting system. Each estate had one vote, so the first and second estates could always outvote the third. This meant that the vast majority of the population had little say in the decisions that affected their lives. The monarchy, the Estates General, the inequality among the classes, and the economic crisis. It was a perfect storm brewing. And so, amidst widespread discontent and financial crisis, the stage was set for a revolution. It was the summer of 1789 when the fires of revolt were ignited. The people of France, weighed down by the burdens of economic struggles and political disillusionment, were ripe for rebellion. The Bastille, a grand fortress in the heart of Paris, stood as a looming symbol of royal authority and oppression. Its towering walls and menacing aura were a constant reminder of the king's iron grip on the nation. But the winds of change were blowing. The Third Estate, representing the majority of French society, had declared themselves the National Assembly. They were determined to fight for their rights, to draft a constitution that would limit the king's power and give voice to the common people. On the fateful day of July 14th, the people stormed the Bastille. The fortress fell, marking the first major blow to the monarchy's power. The audacious act echoed throughout France, stirring the hearts of the oppressed. With the fall of the Bastille, the revolution had officially begun. As the revolution gained momentum, so did the bloodshed. The Reign of Terror, a phrase that still sends chills down the spine, marks one of the darkest periods in the history of the French Revolution. This chilling era was orchestrated by the radical leader Maximilien Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety, a group that ironically ensured anything but safety. In the name of liberty, equality, and brotherhood, the Reign of Terror unleashed a wave of violence that swept across France. The guillotine, a chilling symbol of this era, claimed the lives of thousands, including the once mighty King Louis XVI. The king's execution in January of 1793 marked a pivotal moment in the revolution, severing the last symbolic ties to the old regime. The Reign of Terror was characterized by a surge in radicalism. Any dissent, real or perceived, was met with swift and brutal punishment. The Committee of Public Safety, led by Robespierre, took it upon themselves to purge France of its enemies. The definition of an enemy was fluid, and often included those who simply disagreed with the committee's policies. Even the slightest whisper of opposition could result in a date with the guillotine. This ruthless purge was not limited to the aristocracy. Even commoners, who were initially the revolution's biggest supporters, found themselves at the mercy of the guillotine. The committee's paranoia knew no bounds, leading to a state of constant fear and suspicion. The guillotine became a symbol of dread, its blade casting a long shadow over the ideals of the revolution. The Reign of Terror was a paradoxical time. The revolution, which had begun as a fight for freedom and equality, had warped into a regime of fear and oppression. The ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity were drowned out by the constant drumbeat of the guillotine. The revolution had promised a new dawn for France, but the reign of terror turned it into a long, bloody twilight. The reign of terror had turned the revolution into a bloodbath. The ideals that had once inspired a nation had been twisted into tools of tyranny. The revolution had started with a spark of hope, but it ended in a sea of blood. In the midst of chaos, a new leader emerged. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose rise to power would forever change the course of French history. Born in Corsica, Napoleon was not a traditional Frenchman, but his military prowess and strategic genius set him apart. From an early age, he showed signs of his future greatness. Napoleon quickly climbed the ranks of the military during the French Revolution, proving his mettle in Italy and Egypt. He was a master of warfare, and his innovative strategies stunned his opponents. His soldiers admired him for his leadership, and the French people saw in him a beacon of hope amidst the turmoil. In the year 1799, Napoleon seized power in a coup d'état, toppling the Directory that had been ruling France. He established the French consulate, marking the end of the French Revolution and the beginning of a new era. Napoleon was not just a military genius, he was a visionary leader who knew how to win the hearts of his people. As first consul, Napoleon implemented a series of reforms that brought stability and order to France. He established a new law code, known as the Napoleonic Code, which is still the basis of French civil law today. He reformed the education system, centralized the government, and stabilized the economy. Napoleon was a leader who believed in progress and modernization. But Napoleon's ambition didn't stop at the borders of France. He had dreams of a French empire that would dominate Europe. His military campaigns across the continent earned him a reputation as one of history's greatest conquerors. But as we'll see, this ambition would also lead to his downfall. With the rise of Napoleon, the French Revolution came to a close, but its impact was far from over. Napoleon's reign marked the end of a decade of revolution and the beginning of a new era in French history. He took the ideals of the revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity, and shaped them into a new form of government. Napoleon's legacy is a complex one, but there's no denying the indelible mark he left on France and the world. The revolution, while bloody and chaotic, brought about monumental changes. It was not just a fleeting episode in French history, it was a defining moment that shaped the nation's identity and had profound implications on the world stage. Let's first talk about the spread of nationalism. The French Revolution was a catalyst for nationalistic fervor, not only within France but also beyond its borders. It gave birth to the concept of a nation represented by its citizens, not a king or a queen. This idea of liberty, equality, fraternity resonated with people around the world, inspiring them to challenge their own oppressive regimes and to aspire for self-governance. Now, what about democracy? The revolution was a crucible for democratic ideals. It was the people of France who overthrew a monarchy, who decided they would no longer be subjects but citizens. The creation of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen was a landmark in the history of human rights. This document, inspired by the Enlightenment philosophers, enshrined the principles of individual liberty and equal law. It was a loud proclamation to the world that the voice of the people mattered, that they had the power to shape their own destiny. And then there's the erosion of monarchies. The revolution marked the end of absolute monarchy in France. The king was no longer seen as a divine entity, but a human being, just like any other citizen. This change in perception was monumental. It shook the very foundations of monarchies across Europe, leading to a wave of revolutions in the 19th century. Many of these monarchies gradually transitioned into constitutional ones, where the king or queen's power was limited by a constitution. But the legacy of the French Revolution is not confined to these political changes. It also had a profound impact on culture, science, and education. The revolution inspired a new wave of artistic expression, literature, and scientific exploration. Public education became a right, not a privilege, paving the way for a more literate and informed citizenry. Thus, the ripples of the French Revolution can still be felt today. Its legacy is a reminder of the transformative power of a collective will, of the resilience of the human spirit, and of the enduring quest for freedom and equality. So, the next time you ponder about what drives a nation to revolt, remember the French Revolution, a testament to the power of the people when pushed to the brink.